guys, it's Marianne, and I am joined in the studio today by one of my true DIY and craft icons, the Annie Sloan from Annie Sloan Chalk Paint.
Hello, I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you so much for asking me.
So I thought today you would just give us a little chalk paint 101. What is chalk paint?
It is paint which I've called chalk paint because when you paint it, you feel it, touch it, and it feels chalky. And it's very absorbent like chalk would be.
We have a piece of old furniture right here that is half painted in chalk paint.
So I'd have something like this. It's really well made. A lot of modern furniture isn't so well made. And I can paint directly on here. I don't have to strip it. I don't have to prime it. That was the idea of my paint.
This paint sticks to everything.
Yeah. And after that, I developed all sorts of ideas. So not only would it go on to anything, but it would also be used in many different ways.
We've got some rather basic kitchen cabinet faces here.
So the colour I'm choosing is old white. Now what I would do is the first coat I would just put on. Now you notice that I'm not doing this every, very up and down and straight. I'm just going to get it coated so that it goes on everywhere, make certain I go every which way.
But that was just one dip in the paint. And
that was one dip of paint. Goes a dip. Exactly. Goes a very long way. We need to wait for this to dry a little.
Okay, so our first coat is dried, and true to your word, it only took about 5 or 10 minutes.
Yep. Now the second coat is going on. That looks beautiful. I think that's really, really nice. You've done that well.
All right, so this might take a little longer to dry because it's a little thicker.
Yeah.
Well, through the magic of television, we have one that's already dried, so I'm gonna go grab that.
So the first thing you do is take out clear wax.
Clear wax.
A bit like a shaving brush. You do that, get the wax all over that, and then it's all over.
What purpose does the wax serve?
Because you don't have to prime or sand, you do need something to seal it in. So that's the first coat on. Just define the edges, or where there's a little bit more thicker, you might want to do something like that.
So you can take off some of the texture if you want. You can give it, this really makes it look old and worn. So you also have a dark wax.
I do.
That I think is really interesting.
That is gorgeous. And I'm just going to put a little bit of brown wax. So now I'm going to take that off while it's all still wet, as it were.
Yes.
So I've done that, and you might go, well, that's it, I'm finished. No, I'm going to put a little bit of clear wax on there.
On top of that.
Yeah, and then wipe that off.
So obviously this is very vintage. It would be right at home in like a farmhouse kitchen.
Exactly.
I think this is kind of what people expect from chalk paint.
Yes.
Annie, thank you so much for coming and giving us.
Absolute pleasure. It's been a delight.
And we will see you next time. I just want to keep going.
Yeah, go on.
Right? Let's just keep going.
Hey, I'm Dennis.
I'm Andrew.
Today we are talking all things cutting machine. What is a cutting machine? Well, a cutting machine works like a printer, but it cuts out different materials.
Yeah, and it can draw and it can engrave. It can do a lot, but today we're going to be focusing on the cutting aspect.
Today we're going to be adding vinyl onto our little toolbox here. And a lot of people ask, what is vinyl? Vinyl essentially is a sticker. It is a material that you can cut out with your cutting machine that has an adhesive backing. And it comes in a wide variety of different colors, different sizes, different types. All right, so let's get started. So the design software, it's really easy to use. It's a grid essentially. We already picked out our image. Once you have an image picked out, what you wanna do is measure your item that you're gonna apply the vinyl to.
Twice. I think it should be around 11 inches. So then take your image and then you can size it just like that. They make it really, really easy. So I wanted about 11 inches and there we go. This is all size. That's all we have to do. Click make it, and it's gonna ask me if I want it on the mat. That's what we're gonna go to next. Now the mat, what's great about this is that when you press the mat on the design software, it matches the mat that you're using. So you can match up where you want your vinyl to lay. So you really can't mess that up if you just follow what's on the screen versus what's like on the mat.
Now, as it's loading, you want to select your material. Like we said, a cutting machine can cut a wide variety of different materials, and they have every material listed here that you can choose from. Today, we're using permanent vinyl, so you just have to find it and click it. All right, so now the computer is telling us we have to get our machine ready and load our mat. So we actually already cut down our piece of vinyl here, right here, and we're gonna load our mat.
So all of this is tacky, which is great because that's gonna keep your vinyl on while it's cutting. If it's not tacky enough, your vinyl will like shift and it can kind of ruin the cut. So you really wanna make sure that your mat is clean.
Put our vinyl on the mat. We wanna line up the grid here. But to get a really great cut, you wanna make sure that it's pressed down really well. So we're actually gonna use a brayer just to kind of make sure that the vinyl is adhered to the mat. All right, so now we're ready for the machine to cut out our vinyl here. The machine is blinking, which means it's ready. And again, the machine is a smart machine, so it's gonna do all the work for you. It will actually stop you if you have the wrong material or the wrong blade in the machine. So the first pass is going to be just checking that it's on the mat. And actually, you know it's ready because it will blink and it says, you know, it's ready to go. So we're just gonna press the button and it's gonna start doing its magic.
All right, so now we're gonna unload it with the flashing button. Whenever there's a flashing button, press it. I think that's a good tip.
Yes.
All right, so can I do this part?
Sure.
Great, I love this part. Okay, so now we wanna get our vinyl off of our mat, and we have a tip for that because if you peel it like this, your vinyl is gonna curl. But if you put your mat on the table upside down and then hold the vinyl and peel the mat itself, that's gonna help the vinyl not curl. I would call that, that is definitely a pro tip. And then here's another pro tip. Put your cover right back on your mat just so it doesn't get so dirty.
All right, so now we're gonna do the process of weeding. So you just wanna grab the corner and just peel away, making sure that none of your actual vinyl that you need
gets peeled
comes
away
off.
as well,
Yes.
yeah.
Woo!
Thank you. You know, we usually don't get applause at home, but this is great. And that's it, Cutting Machines 101. Gosh, I know we covered a lot of stuff, but I do hope that this inspires you to take out your cutting machine from your box and just give it a try.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Hi, I'm Katie. If you saw my recent home tour, you know I love to discover vintage finds for my colorful home. Here's how I find hidden gems all over Los Angeles and beyond, and some of my favorite finds of all time. This vintage Nova of California double arc lamp is actually my favorite vintage find in my whole home. I was able to score it for 300 bucks on Facebook Marketplace, and it inspired me to change up my entire room and really sparked my love of postmodern pieces. I got this from the PCC flea market for only 50 bucks as well, which for a vintage marble statue is an insane steal. It's so beautiful and so well made, and it even inspired one of my new wallpapers from my new capsule collection. This really cool wavy squiggle glass side table I scored on Facebook Marketplace for $125. I actually kind of had to stalk the guy because he wasn't responding, and I was so obsessed with it, and I knew I was gonna have to fight off a bunch of other people for it, which I did, but I persisted. I wrote him for 3 days straight. Finally, he wrote me back, and I went and picked this up in Malibu, and it was definitely worth it. So this is my super cute pocket tape measure. I actually thrifted this. I mean, come on. How cute is this? I was so lucky to score this amazing vintage large round shelf on Facebook Marketplace for only 50 bucks. I did drive for it. I drove almost an hour to get it, but I jumped on it quickly. I fought off a ton of other people that wanted it. It's vintage 80s, potentially early 90s, and I just absolutely love it. It goes with my postmodern theme and displays some of my favorite treasures. Super excited when I found these super rare 70s mushroom lamps by Sao Design on Facebook Marketplace. I was able to score them for 250 bucks. So much of my home has come from Facebook Marketplace. If you find something you love, it's definitely worth the drive. I hope that these tips were helpful, and I hope that they encourage you to start looking for vintage finds of your own.
Hi, I'm Allison McKean. I'm an artist and printmaker in Gardner, Maine. Today I'm going to show you how to block print like a pro. Block printing is a type of printmaking where you carve a stamp or a block and then essentially use your hands to then print it onto a surface. So if you want to get into block printing, most craft stores will have some really good like beginner level tools, and like honestly a lot of the stuff that I use is technically beginner level. They're just reliable tools. And then this pink rubber, again, this is something that you can find at most craft stores. They will come in this sheet, and you'll just carve your shapes right out of that. So today I'm going to print this percolator coffee pot. I drew directly onto the rubber, and just be mindful of the fact that when you then stamp it down, it's going to be reversed. For example, if I had text written out here, that text when I stamp it is going to be backwards. So that is something crucial to remember. After I have drawn my image onto the block, the first thing I would do is get a larger gouge carving tool and then carve out the outline. It is important, I would say, to start more simply and then go in with details later, because you can't undo the carving. So do less to start with, then go in and finesse later on. So anything that you carve away is going to be negative space on your print. I'm just about done carving it, but I did leave a little bit of space around the edges. It's kind of nice to have a little bit of extra space, because then you can kind of hold that with your hands as you stamp it, and then you're not interfering with the inked up block too much. So now I'm just gonna start mixing these. So the ink that I used today is a special fabric block printing ink. Again, that's something that is in most craft stores. It will say fabric ink on the tube, and that is what you want. This is a brayer. It's used for rolling ink. You just dip it in, and then I start back here and do a roll like this, do a few of them, then go the other way, and then you end up with kind of like a long rectangle shaped area of rolled out ink. So for me, this is like one of the most magical moments, because you kind of see your image for the first time. You can also see if there's any areas that you want to change, like maybe carve away. I'm feeling pretty happy with it, so I think I'm gonna leave it. So I'm just doing a light tap here. And for fabric printing, you do want quite a bit of pressure. So I'm actually kind of leaning my body weight onto it, and I'm going across the whole surface evenly. And then you can kind of peel up a corner and see how it's looking. So this looks good. I'm just gonna keep pulling it up from here. And as I'm doing that, I'm gonna hold down the surface of the fabric with my other hand. And there we go. Thank you so much for block printing with me today. I hope that you had fun and maybe learned something, and we'll see you next time.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Hare. I'm a paper maker and owner at Share Studios. And today we're gonna make handmade paper like a pro. The first thing you wanna do when you're making handmade paper is make sure you're setting up in a space that is watertight, or that you're not going to completely destroy with water. You don't want to ruin your nice hardwood floors or cause any mold issues. You got to make sure that all of your water is contained. So this is my beater. The beater is where the paper is made, they actually say, because this is what is going to determine the characteristics of your paper, depending on how much water, how much fiber, the different distance between the bed plate and the roll. So when you manipulate all those different things, you can create a wide variety of different kinds of paper. When we're starting, the paper is this half stuff. So this is not the raw fiber, it's already been partially processed in these sheets. I then soak it, I've got it in my bucket here, soak it and tear it up into smaller pieces here, so now it's really soft and malleable. And then it's gonna go into the beater. And so it starts as a fiber, turns into a pulp, and I'm eventually going to turn it into what's called a slurry, and that's when I'll start making my paper. When you first get started, it's just gonna break down some of these smaller pieces, make it a little more of a mush. So this has been in the beater for about an hour and a half. I'm really looking to make sure most of the clumps are out, of course. I've got everything assembled here. I'm gonna use a few different colors today, and they're gonna be combined with what's called a retention agent, which is the chemical that it's going to make all of these pigment molecules bind to the fiber. So, what I'm gonna do first is add our retention agent. Again, this is the chemical that's going to allow the pigment to bond to the fibers. If you don't add this additive, then you're going to find a lot of pigment floating around and pulp, and it's not gonna actually stick together. So this is always the first step. Now, you wanna make sure with pigments that you strain them. Otherwise, it could be little dried bits or little chunks that aren't going to incorporate into the pulp. And you're gonna find some really blotchy, gross spots when you're done, which is always a real bummer. Mixing it in. Pull out a little swatch, try to squeeze out some water. So this is an additive that helps any ink or paint to not feather into the pulp. It's time to add some pulp to our vat. Pull a few sheets. So I'm gonna hog my vat, charge it up here, make sure everything is really disintegrated. All right, we're gonna go for it. Go under, back up. So as I'm doing this, I can actually get a sense for how thick those sheets are too. I can see how much pulp is in there. And you can notice that the water didn't flow through that screen immediately. It's holding onto a lot of water. I think you're gonna be surprised how much water and how thick these sheets are. And then when they're dry, they're actually gonna be quite thin. So it's a fun kind of magic trick, the way it dries. These sheets of pulp over onto my felts, which is called couching. So I'm going to take it, enough water has come out now so it's not gonna slop around. I'm gonna just flip it over, lay it down on my felts. It's helpful to have your felts a little damp to begin with. The water molecules want to connect to each other, so they're really gonna stay on there. But that looks good. I'm just gonna lift it up, and there we go. And what I'll do when I'm done there is put another felt on top, put another whiteboard on top, and then I'll bring it into my back room, and I'll put it into my hydraulic press, which is going to really squeeze out all the water, compress that fiber into a nice tight fiber paper. So once the paper has been pressed in my hydraulic press, all of the water has been removed, or most of it, we're gonna bring it over to my dry box system. So this is actually a series of layers of cardboard, polyester felts, and window screen, and there's a box fan in the back, which is gonna blow the air through all of these things. Look at those beautiful rumples along the edge. This is one of the most satisfying parts because I'm going to be able to actually see that stack grow. Thanks for stopping by. See you next time.